This is the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. How are you doing tonight? How you doing, Rob? How you doing over there, okay? Good to see you, buddy. Rob Barrett's my engineer, ladies and gentlemen, and guess what time it is? It is tax time. It's not April, I know that, but you got to get your taxes together, am I right? Right. I don't know about you. It takes me like months just to go through my receipts. Anyway, George J. Cambaras, a former IRS agent for almost 40 years, is here with us tonight, and he may have all the information you need to survive anything and everything taxing. The name of his book, Easy IRS Help. How you doing, George?
These are actually tax tips and loopholes. Actually, the book is pro-IRS. It's not how to cheat. It's telling you that you should be honest. There's 47 chapters that tell you how to handle most of your tax problems. Most people have a problem with IRS in the next 2, 3, 4 years. What are you going to do when you hear from them?
Right.
I give step-by-step examples of my years of experience. I was in charge of the fraud program. I was a manager. I was an agent. I went after organized crime. I was a reviewer. I was an instructor. Very few revenue agents have had the vast experience that I've had as a revenue agent. And what people don't realize is this book, it has to do with the Fresh Start program, where up to 85% of your debt can be written off. IRS is giving you a break. Bankruptcy, you can get rid of 100% of your debt in many cases. Tells you how to handle if you haven't filed a tax return in years, things like that. What are your chances of going to jail? What do you do when you get a letter from the IRS? How to get a transcript if you need a mortgage real quick, in the same day. Tells you exactly how to get involved with the taxpayer advocate, how to handle collection, how to handle an IRS audit. It handles just about everything you can think of having an IRS problem. I took a course in settling tax debt with the IRS, which had the Fresh Start program, and I thought it was bogus, but I found out it was really true. And I've been dealing with the correspondence audits. I've been dealing with collection division. I've been dealing with the taxpayer advocate. And I found in most situations, IRS is undermanned. They want to close cases, and in most situations, they're very helpful. And it's amazing some of the deals I've got for people just recently. I'm coming back out of retirement, and I've been helping a lot of people with their IRS tax problems. And one of the things I want to do is specialize is in the Fresh Start program. But the common sense things, I have like funny stories that are in the book too. And I talk about common sense things about the job of a revenue agent, which is making decisions, right or wrong, and I give, funny little examples of things, how I've dealt with people, and little advice. For example, I had a person that had no records. Well, I took 2 oil receipts, that's all they had for changing oil, and I showed that in 4 months they drove 8,000 miles. So for 24 months, I got them credit for 24,000 miles at 55.7% or something like that for auto mileage. I went and got credit for other stuff, and I reduced the it by about 60-70% of what they were billing them for. I came in later on, and it's just amazing how people don't know what to do, and they're sitting there like, and they wait to the last minute. When you get a letter from the IRS, I have there's 2.2 million errors. And I tell you what kind of errors are the ones when you send in your tax return. And most people don't realize when they find an error and they correct it, usually they take it out of the audit stream. So there's so many common sense things in there that the average person wouldn't know. And in fact, a good part of the stuff when I researched the book, I and most revenue agents and accountants aren't aware of. This book is like your Bible. Somewhere along the line, if you need a transcript, if you have a change of address, if your identity was stolen, what phone number do you call? How do you get in touch with IRS? Claim for a reward. You're turning someone in. There's so many things in there that I have exactly step by step what to do, how to pick an accountant. I have a check sheet that's in the book that's perfect, a weekly check sheet for people who travel and have their expenses. And the vast majority of audits, the adjustments are from poor records, believe it or not.
Yep,
And
I believe it.
I tell people how to keep better records. And the important thing is I'm tired of the CPAs and lawyers telling you how a revenue agent or a tax auditor is going to, how to handle them, what they're going to do. Basically, we all do things differently. You cannot walk in and say, well, he's going to do this or he's going to do that,
It sounds to me you're not going to have any problem selling this book.
Well, I have a reading I'm going to probably do at a library, and then I have some accountants that I'm going to do a reading in front of. They're all interested when they see this because people aren't aware of so many things in this book. And same thing for accountant or revenue agent. He can go and look at my book and look up something real quick instead of doing all the time researching.
Oh, okay. So you've got something for everybody, not just the taxpayers, but for the people doing your taxes as well. All right, George, the title of our next book you are going to love, The Myth of the Level Playing Field. I mean, is anything in life level? Jerry Fowler is the author. Now, you've got a degree in political science, almost 2 years at Harvard Law, and you're a psychotherapist for over 50 years. But tell us what really motivated you to write this book.
I don't know, let's say 5 years ago, I was driving and I saw a bumper sticker that said, if you think the system is working, ask someone who isn't. And that sort of hit me, after the 2008 meltdown and the millions of people who gave up looking for jobs because they couldn't find any. I became aware of the fact that the argument of conservatives, these lazy people would just get a job, and suddenly there weren't any jobs. It turned out there were 5 million jobs in the country that couldn't be filled because people weren't trained. And then I took a look at how vocational education had been phased out in the high schools and in the junior colleges, and I could see what a catch-22 it was.
I hear you, man. College isn't for everybody.
That's for sure.
And
I make the point in my book that 2/3 to 3/4 of all the jobs of the 21st century are not going to require a bachelor's degree. They might require a little junior college, or they might not. Probably most will not. And yet the myth that's presented in our society that really the only route to get ahead, if you're not born rich, is to get an education. And the more education, the better, because it'll make you more money. And on a statistical basis, that's true. It'll make you about $1 million more if you have a BA over a high school diploma. But we now have about 31% of all of Americans that have degrees, and only about 25% of the jobs require that. But what happens to that other 6% of the Americans? 12 million people that got their college degree, accumulated $30,000 in student loan debt, and can't get a job and living in their parents' basement.
So does your book attempt to lay out how we got here, how this happened, what we can do about it?
Right. So the first thing is to not let anybody graduate from high school until they've passed a rigorous test. Then change the laws so that you have to stay in school until you can, unless you're retarded or brain damaged. So one thing to do would be to really improve the quality of public education with high standards.
You're saying you want to increase awareness and you want to get people talking about this.
Right. And I want to contribute to the national conversation about the absence of a level playing field. So you asked, what can be done about it? And one thing that can be done is to restore vocational training to high schools and junior colleges. Another thing that can be done is to have a rigorous test. You don't get out of high school until you can do the things that you're supposed to be able to do. The Common Core is a step in the right direction, in my opinion.
Okay.
Another thing that can be done is people can start opposing the idea that their representatives in Congress should only represent their district so they can get reelected. What has to happen is there has to be a change in consciousness for those people running for office, that they're interested in serving the country, not in having narrow parochial district interests. And I point out in the book that more than half of American workers make less than $20 an hour.
Yep.
Well, $20 an hour comes out to about $40,000 a year. And the minimum you have to make in order to be able to have a single salary, be able to afford the average house in the cheapest section of the country, you have to make $70,000 a year. Otherwise, you have to have another income, or you have to buy like a duplex and have somebody else help you pay.
I know, Jerry, it's endless. So many examples of the unlevel playing field. Yeah, I got to say, you've hit a nerve on this one. The title of Ernest Danick's book gives you a fairly good idea of what it's about and what he wore. It's called Teaching in Long Underwear, My China. So what's it like in China, Ernest?
Well, geographically, it's a lot like the United States. I mean, we occupy similar latitudes in that. Well, it's not a democracy, believe me. It's living in a totalitarian environment, put it that way. You're there to teach. I was teaching oral English. My students had a lot of vocabulary and grammar and some basic sentence structure starting when they were practically toddlers and then up until high school graduation. But they'd had no instruction at all in oral English because the only reason they were studying was to pass the Gaokao, the college entrance test. And that was all fill in the bubbles.
So this was actually learning how to communicate in English.
For them, yes.
How did you end up doing this?
I had my own news and light commercial photography business for 22 years in Cedar Rapids. And sometime during the 1990s, the budget for my customers' newsrooms was slashed to almost nothing. And, what had been a very lucrative market just disappeared. And about the year 2000, I closed my freelance efforts, and I looked around for a place, something to do that I could tolerate and make a living at. And I knew that people went overseas to teach English, and I had done a volunteer work with our community college and students from Central America. Found out that getting a teaching English as a foreign language TEFL certificate was very advantageous to have. And a year later, I found a position in China, the city of Dalian, and took off for that. I had to do something, and nobody seemed to want an aging writer, but China needed and wanted oral English teachers. I had no formal training as a teacher, and it was shoot from the hip on the run. In the book, I go into some detail on this. The book has two lines of linear track: my life in China and the development of a teaching plan for oral English. Those two things. And the thing that makes it outstanding, I think, is the length of time that I was there. People go to China for 1 year. I was there for 10.
Wow. Did you enjoy the experience overall?
I honestly can't give you an answer on that. What would I have done if I had stayed in the States? I had just been a chronically broke, aging person, and in China I was at least deferred to. I never did learn the language. I learned a lot of words. I learned some phrases, something about the customs.
Well, I mean, you stayed there for 10 years. You must have liked something.
I didn't have any choice.
Oh.
Teaching in long underwear, my China is aimed at people who have some interest in going to China to teach, and that's a tremendous number of people, by the way. It just amazes me. And people who have a general interest in China.
Why teaching in long underwear?
That's a good question. Okay, when I was first talking to people by telephone about teaching in Dalian, the minder, the Y-bond from this school in Dalian put me in contact with a foreign teacher named Paul. And during the conversation, he said that the temperatures got very cold in the winter. There was winds that came straight off the Bohai Sea there, and it was cold. It was nasty. And the classrooms were not heated during a lot of the periods. So he says, in the morning, I just put on two-piece long underwear and just leave them on all day.
Well, there you
and
have it.
And that turned out to be a pretty good answer, yes.
All right, so everything you ever wanted to know about teaching in China, but were afraid to or just never even thought to ask. We've got to take a quick break, but we are coming right back. Stay with us. This is the Page Publishing Book Club.
Have you written a book and want to get it published? Then now's the time to call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099 and do it immediately. You see, they're looking for authors of all types of books, and unlike most publishers, Page Publishing will take the time to review most of the books submitted to them, and they'll even give you their feedback. And if they like what they read, Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, the Apple iTunes Store, and other outlets. They'll handle everything: copyright protection, printing, cover art, publicity, and editing. So if you've written a novel, a children's book, a cookbook, inspirational work, a book of poetry, or biography, and want to get it published, then you need to call Page Publishing and do it immediately. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. Your road to fame and fortune could very well start with this simple phone call. For your free author submission kit, call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099.
You came back to the Page Publishing Book Club, and boy, are we glad you did. Robert Stach has published 2 books with Page. His first was called Saving the Human Race, and now he's followed that up with his new book entitled The Ice Age Cometh. Robert, as your readers know, you are very much inspired by global warming.
Yes, all through history, the last million years, CO2 levels have gone up in the atmosphere. We have had global warming, and that the upshot of that has been an ice age. In the first book, a group of scientists found how to travel in time and travel very rapidly. And they came back and tried to convince people in 2012 to change their ways, do something about global warming.
Right.
Well, they didn't pay any attention to them, so these people started bringing people to a new planet. They brought a group of people, some politicians, to 2130 to show them that the Ice Age was really there. So these people in the second book, a doctor and his family and 2 daughters, knew that what they called the visitors came in 2130 to the equatorial region of South America. And so they weren't among the people who got taken to the new planet. And what their whole goal was to try to get down to the equatorial region of South America to contact the visitors so they could be taken to the new planet when they came to 2130. So it's their travels from Minnesota to South America using a really special RV that could do a lot of different things, and their trials and troubles that they faced in getting to South America. They met along the way some good people, some very bad people that tried to take them and kill them and so forth. They also met a group of people that they brought with them to South America. And eventually what it comes out, they do contact the visitors, as they call them, and they are taken also, the whole group, about 50 people, are taken again to the New World.
So we have to go to a new world because we're too stupid to do anything about global warming.
You're absolutely correct. And the ice age that comes is an extinction-level ice age. It covers the entire planet.
Wow,
so
Robert.
Everything dies.
Now, how far are you going to go with this?
There's a follow-up to this one
Yeah.
that Page Publishing just accepted too. And I'm writing a 4th book. And it really is based on true facts. The idea of global warming is real, and they've gone back at least 800,000 years, and we are at a higher level of CO2 than ever in that recorded history. And so it is very possible when the ice age comes, and ice ages come periodically. In the last million years, we've had 6 ice ages or something like that. So we are going to have another ice age. The problem is most scientists in the middle 1900s thought the ice age would come in about 10,000 years. And we, because of the pollution that we've had and the levels of CO2 in the atmosphere we've probably pushed that ice age sooner. Some scientists believe that we are already past the point of no return, and they don't know when the ice age will come, but they're sure it's going to come.
Well, I would say, if nothing else, you are inspiring some heated debate about global warming. Our next author, Rocky Whitehall, wrote Out of the Depths about love and life and everything in between. It's a book of poetry, right? That you describe, Rocky, as a reflection of your life that you've been writing for 37 years.
Yes. I've been always thinking about getting them published, and The way I view it is about time, to put my writing out there. I've always been asked, why don't I publish a book? And sometimes in life things work out differently. So this is the time I decided, okay, it's time to do it.
Can you give me an idea of what your poetry's like? You want to read something to me?
Let me give you one. It's actually the first poem in the book. I named it Eternity. I'm taking a trek. Feel free to join me. You don't have to pack. We're heading to eternity. It's a timeless place. Earthly possessions don't belong. If you choose to come, just bring your heart along. But beware, you can get stuffed if your heart has any hate, and you cannot fool the guardian at eternity's gate. Only love is allowed, pure, simple, and free, for nothing else matters from here to eternity.
That's lovely. Are you going to places where you can read your poetry?
I used to, but my poems, as you can see, they're very short. And where I used to go is like, their poems is about 10 times the length of mine. And actually, I don't think my style actually fitted with theirs. So I stopped.
I think it's great that your poems are short.
Well, that's my style. That's the only way I know how to write. And I try to say everything I have to say in a very small frame. But I also intend for my readers to also think.
Yeah. What's your greatest hope for this book?
Really? To make a lot of money.
You want to make a lot of money? Okay. Well, then you got to get it out there, buddy.
Yes.
All right, at least you're
That's
honest.
the truth.
Is there any particular time in your life, or did anything particular happen to you that really inspired you to write?
No, actually, this is really how it happens. I may be just paying attention to something. Somebody may just say something, and it clicks in my head, and I'm off to writing. Just something like within, I would say, that just clicks. And I kind of pick and choose what to write about, really. I didn't like writing about, the regular stuff, the normal stuff people write about. So I kind of pick and choose what I want to write about.
You just write whatever comes to you.
Yes, technically, yes. Can I give you another one so you can understand a little more?
Sure.
I named this one The Pioneer, okay?
Okay.
When the road runs out, a new one he made. Uncharted boundaries. That's the path the pioneer takes. Boldly going where no one had dared before. Throwing caution to the wind in search of something more. Always the first to see, to feel, and to do. It's the pioneering spirit. It has to be bred into you. Failure is not an option. Sometimes to fail is to die. But that's the essence of a pioneer. They accept that the risk is high. Those two is mostly, that's almost how all the poems in the book are.
All right.
In that kind of style.
All right.
And pointed in that direction.
All right, Rocky. Thanks for the readings. Really appreciate that. Finally, Dennis King wrote, Dennis King, the highest jumper to ever step foot on this earth. Now, Dennis, I'm thinking I'll find you in the Guinness book somewhere, or, somewhere, if you were really the highest jumper to ever step foot on this earth.
Oh, I trained myself. Back in 1993, working out with boxes of meat. So I just started working out with it. I started doing calf raises, and I was pushing 5,000 pounds of meat. So I just thought about jumping. I wanted to duck, and I just started working out with the boxes. Started doing calf raises.
Did you win an award or something? I mean, what's the point of being the highest jumper to ever step foot on this earth?
No. I didn't win an award. I just wanted to dunk. That's all I wanted to do. So I didn't have no weight, so I started working out with the boxes of meat.
Boxes of meat. Like, how big are these boxes of meat?
It was anywhere from 40 pounds up to 200 pounds. And I was at my job, and all of a sudden I just started doing calf raises on the steps. And then I started working out with the meat, squatting with the boxes. And then I went to the gym, and I was skipping and got my head to the rim. I was like, whoa, that is weird. And all of a sudden I started yelling to all the people on the other side. They was like, well, let me see. So I came all the way back and ran fast as I could and jumped up. And that's when I got my whole head over the rim. I got my stomach to a 10-foot rim, but I was trying to come back down once my head got close to the rim. I was trying to come back down while I was still going up.
You said you learned this technique from 6-time Miss Olympia.
Yes, Corey Everson.
You know this woman?
No, I don't know her at all. I remember watching one of her shows on ESPN called Body Shaping. And so I got the idea in my head by watching her do something called donkey calf race.
Okay.
So I got the notion in my head.
Obviously, this clearly worked for you. And now you want to share this technique with people who want to jump.
Yes, I want everybody to get this book. And I want everybody to know that the technique also just don't make you jump high. It makes you run fast as well.
Are you an athlete?
Not now, but I used to be an athlete. I used to play all the sports.
Did you ever compete?
I did basketball. I did a lot of basketball, different leagues, and I won a lot of championships. I won a few championships.
What's the highest you ever jumped?
That was it when I got my stomach to a 10-foot rim.
When you got your stomach to a 10-foot rim?
Yep. This is my book. It's for me. I'm trying to sell it. One day I hope to get a movie deal, so I can, support myself. And plus, I want everybody to know who's the highest jumper. I want everybody to know it's me. It ain't Michael Jordan. It ain't Vince Carter. It's not Doug Thomas. It's not LeBron James or Earl Manny Goat. It is me, Dennis King. If people want to run fast, get the book. You want to jump high, get the book.
All right, Dennis, I'm going to take your word for it, and I'm thinking right after the show, I'm going to go grab some meat, maybe a side of beef. I'm going to do some calf raises. Come on, Rob. Let's do some calf raises. What do you say? And we'll jump right out of here because we're out of time, but we will be back. We always come back. Or you can just download us at 710wor.iheart.com and listen whenever you want. Otherwise, we will see you next week, same time, same place, 710 WOR. Have a great weekend.